remember the story. Yeah. So I was exhibiting at a networking event. It was like a conference of some sort, a networking conference. And he came up to me and was very agitated and started to tell me, one of those people, like, networking doesn't work. And da, 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 and he's like, I mean, I don't know if he was yelling at me, but I mean, maybe that's just, but I was like, geez, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not forcing you to network, but I was like, okay, Gelie, calm down. Just, see if you can actually help this guy. So I said to him, I said, okay, well, what do you typically talk about? And he's like, well, I talk about my company and what I do. And I don't remember what he told me, but I was like, okay, well, so here's what I'll do. I'll give you a challenge. Okay. For the next hour, I want you to walk around the room. I want you to talk to people. I don't want you to mention your business at all. Don't tell people what you do. Don't tell them who you are. Ask them questions. Ask them everything about them. Like, what they do, how they found out about this event. Just get the conversation going, but don't talk about yourself, and then come back to me and tell me what the results were. Mm-hmm. So towards the end of the event, he comes back to me, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I want this guy here again. Is he going to yell at me again? What's going to happen? And he was like, wow. He was like, wow, you were right. That was incredible. He was like, that was completely different. Mm-hmm. So he had a completely different experience just having conversations with people as opposed to trying to sell them as soon as he opened his mouth. Who wants to be sold to? Nobody wants to be sold to. Even if it's the most amazing thing in the world, is this amazing gadget that we all need to have. But like, I don't want to be sold on it. I want to feel like I made up my own mind to buy it, or, whatever the case is. Right. Yeah. So, and again, I think this is where people just confuse networking with sales a little bit, because networking is not sales. Networking is building relationships. And I think in that same conversation you and I had, I told you, I'm a horrible closer. I can network like nobody else's business and build relationships with anyone. But when it comes time to close, that's a whole different skill set. Yeah. So is networking.
I would challenge you to think about that a little bit differently, because if you've queued them up right, and as far as I'm concerned, the networking part, we're still, we're grabbing people's attention, and then we're qualifying them, and we continue to, usually when I talk about qualifying, or prospecting, we're grabbing somebody's attention, we're qualifying, and I say it 3 times because we really want to make sure they're qualified. And if we go through that effort to really make sure they're qualified before we bring up what it is that we do and how it could fix their problem, because they've already mentioned to us they have that problem and they're experiencing the things that you help people get rid of or solve. In a lot of ways, or in a lot of circumstances, they'll raise their hand. They'll say, no kidding, you do that and you've done it for that guy whose life is exactly, or business is exactly like mine. How much would that cost for you to do it for me? And now you're into a discovery phase. Now you can qualify a little bit more, start to customize the scope of service and the pitch, and that becomes way easier because you already know everything about this other person, right? You already know their whole circumstance and how they like to phrase different parts of their problem. And so you can start to make the connections and phrase the offer, phrase the pitch in a way that is going to land smack dab right at the heart of their issue and the way they understand it, so that when you give them a price, the reply is, oh, that's it. Oh yeah, no brainer. Let's do it. Right.
Right. And when that happens, I'm like, geez, am I undercharging? That was way too easy. I'm like, that was like the quickest yes I've had. I'm like, what? Yeah.
Well, the better you get at selling, the more you can charge.
Right. Yeah.
The selling in a lot of cases is part of the service, right?
Right.
So, for me, networking is a form of prospecting. I like to pair the outbound stuff that I teach with networking, leading up to an event, scheduling in-person meetings, putting yourself on people's radars before they even get there. If not, scheduling a hard appointment somewhere on location so that, you create a sense of urgency around that. Hey, you're going, I'm going to be there. Let's make the most of it by having a conversation, continuing our last conversation, or really getting into the nuts and bolts of whatever it is that we're both interested in, or how we can help each other, whether it's doing business or referring business. That's how you make the most of that face-to-face time, especially the farther on you get in your career, whether you're a salesperson or you're building a business. The farther you get down that road, the more precious your time is. And so you want to make the most of it. And I guess this is as good of time as any to mention the Hire and Train SDRs Fast checklist. If you're an entrepreneur or a sales leader who is building a team and you've gotten to that point where you know a lot of people and you need to make better use of your time, and you're exploring the idea of hiring sales development reps to help you manage the relationships, people who are earlier on in their sales career, that can be taught to open those doors and manage relationships in between those big moments, those big meetings, the face-to-face at conferences. Be sure to stop by startinphoenix.com. So startinphx.com/SDR to get instant access to the Hire and Train SDR's Fast checklist. This is the same process I walk customers through on a regular basis to help attract, onboard, train, and get sales development reps up and running as fast as possible so they feel successful and good at their job and don't leave you, and you feel confident in their ability to do the job because they're generating meetings and conversations that actually lead to revenue. So again, startinphoenix.com/SDR